Good morning, everyone. My name is Mighty Stream, and I'm going to do your May the 14th, just for today, in a meditation. If you need to reach me, feel free to do so at recoveryofhope21@gmail.com. Yesterday, I posted the Just for Today twice, even though I had the Spiritual Principles a Day meditation ready. So today you will see two spiritual principles a day um, available, one for the 13th and one for the 14th. And I didn't find out about that till later in the evening. So unfortunately, we missed that one. Okay, just for today, May 14th. Oops. Insanity is repeating the same mistakes and expecting different results. That comes from our basic text, page 23. Mistakes. We all know how it feels to make them. Many of us feel that our entire lives have been a mistake. We often regard our mistakes with shame or guilt. At the very least, with frustration and impatience. We tend to see mistakes as evidence that we are still sick, crazy, stupid, or too damaged to recover. In truth, mistakes are a very vital and important part of being human. For particularly stubborn people, such as addicts, mistakes are often our best teachers. There's no shame in making mistakes. In fact, making new mistakes often shows our willingness to take risks and grow. It's helpful, though, if we learn from our mistakes. Repeating the same ones may be a sign that we're stuck. And expecting different results from the same old mistakes, well, that's what we call insanity. It just doesn't work. Just for today, mistakes aren't tragedies, but please, higher power, help me learn from them. Let's take a moment of silence followed by the we version of the Serenity Prayer. Moment of silence now. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. Oops, mistakes. We do make mistakes. It's part of living life. As long as I have breath in my body, I am sure that I will make mistakes. What I do after I make the mistake oftentimes is what determines where I'm at recovery wise and mentally. Making mistakes sometimes that doesn't really impact anyone. It's not a high risk mistake. It affects myself, me, myself, and I, maybe the people I live in my home with. But generally, what I have found that the mistakes that I make are not high risk. They're the type of mistakes that I might feel bad about myself over. I might feel stupid. I might feel a certain way about my own mistakes. And then there's the other type of mistakes that a mistake, say, while driving at a high rate of speed and trying to navigate a turn that clearly indicates with the yellow warning sign, the yellow caution sign to slow down to a certain speed limit. But you hit that curb going way too fast because you were distracted or thought you could handle the wheel. You fly off the road and hit a tree, total your vehicle, you're injured, and the people in the vehicle are injured. And in some cases, some people lose their life. That's a serious, high stake mistake. That's a mistake that cost almost everything. A person walking away from that type of mistake may hate themselves, have survivor's guilt. They may feel lots of guilt and shame. And you still will have to deal with life. And being remorseful is not going to serve you any purpose, maybe other than to really help you try and avoid that feeling again by not making the same mistake again. But there's some people that it doesn't really matter what it is. The moment you tell them you should not do that, or don't do that, or there's a law against that, there's something innate within them that wants to automatically go against the grain. And they will choose to do the same thing over and over and over, because that means something to them, to be able to make their own decisions regardless to what anyone else is saying, even though they individually have proof that that behavior has never proved beneficial for them. And in a spiritual sense, they hit a tree going at a rate of speed, going into a curve, and they had plenty of warning not to do it in a spiritual sense. Some of those behaviors are high stake. If I barely came through a situation with my mind, my sanity, my will to live, I'm not lining up for the same type of behavior, the same mistake, because I barely got out of it alive to begin with. And I'm talking about spiritually and physically and mentally. And in some cases, financially. I'm not going back into the same thing. I can't afford to, because I'm not sure that I would be able to survive for real, if the same thing were to happen again. And very likely, if nothing changes, nothing changes. Making mistakes, and I would say like honest mistakes, aren't tragedies. They're opportunities for us to learn and improve ourselves and the lives of those around us that are connected to us. So today, I'm going to be looking at what things I am personally doing that might be the same type of mistake that I've made in the past. I can think of a couple things. Just in the last year, I can think of a couple of things, some mistakes that I've made, giving people opportunities to do something different than they did the first time, second time, third, and fourth time in their interaction with me. And it hasn't cost me everything, but it has caused me to become more resentful, right? And so sometimes that's another thing. We don't really look at when we think we're doing something good, or think we're being loving, right? And I have a very particular situation in mind in regards to a service I provide in the community. And it's set up really where, I'm able to remove my personal feelings from it and provide the service. However, in the last year, there's been some people seeking service repetitively. And because that's what, the agency does, provide services and try not to discriminate. But I'm in charge of trying to make sure that the resources are used properly, right? And one of the things that I did this year was individuals that had been using the services repetitively and not benefiting from them because they would drop the ball. I have had it in my mind not to continue to offer services to them in particular because they're not learning from their own mistakes. They're doing the same thing over and over. They are using again and again and again, right? And expecting different results, but that's not the case. And no service or agency should ever be in the position where people can continue to access the service over and over and not carry and do what is intended with the service that's provided. And so me and my thinking, because I understand the mind of being an addict, is just tweak it just a little bit, put a little bit more stipulation on this service. And they surely will understand that this is an honor, a privilege to have access. So I'm thinking, yeah, let's do the same thing over and over, but let's do it a different way. Maybe like put more consequences on it, right? If you don't make it this time, you will not be able to use this service for at least a year, right? Something like that. Make it heavier. But that affects no one that's not serious. That doesn't, an addict that's not getting recovery or doesn't want recovery or uses the fact that they're an addict to their advantage is the reason why they keep doing what they do without ever getting the sense of surrendering to recovery and the spiritual principles of the 12 steps. Very likely they will drop the ball again. So I have made the same mistake, thinking that is better to give a person another chance. And honestly, I believe the people that want it bad enough, when they come for the service, they make a go of it. There's no need for them to return because they want it bad enough. And those that don't want it bad enough, they will keep tapping the source until it's dry. And that's why, in this instance, sometimes making being positive and forgiving and not drudging up the past on a person, right? Doesn't, unless they want the change, you're just giving them more rope to hang themselves, right? And so I've learned this year that there's certain behaviors that come with a person really wanting to make a change. There's a certain gift of desperation that is not situational. Because if the gift of desperation is situational, once the situation disappears, the behavior comes back because there's no humility for real. There's no interest in recovery for real. There's no interest in relationship for real. There's no interest in keeping a job for real. There's no interest in whatever is on the table that you think is so important for real. And so, me opening the door just to pour out more resources and to end up on empty again, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, it's not worth it. That is the strongest lesson that I have learned, that insanity is repeating the same mistakes and expecting different results. A lot of times when I'm in that, my ideal and my thinking is not, um, you know, negative, right? This is detrimental. Sometimes all I'm trying to do is be kind and be helpful and forgiving, right? Love unconditionally. My motive coming to the table has absolutely nothing to do with what they're bringing to the table. If they're coming to the table with the same manipulative, conniving, using, get over, dog eat dog mentality, and I can't read a person's heart. I cannot. I can't read their mind. But doggone it, in these situations, if it wasn't just a week or so before the true nature in that person began to reveal itself once again, yeah, I felt stupid. I felt foolish. I felt horrible. I felt like, oh man, they got me again. But my response time was my response time was quickened, meaning that I already had it in mind what I would need to do if it didn't work out. And I moved on it quickly. And I just kind of struck the person from the list of ever being able to have access. And I'm not one individual, a couple of people had to be removed completely from having access. Like I had to treat them like we had never met. Because my heart is just way too big. My heart is like super forgiving, super loving, super kind. It's like amped up to the point where sometimes I realize it's not an asset. It's a liability. And in those two situations, definitely it was a liability. And I don't ever see in this life revisiting, offering anything to those individuals when there's a whole world full of people, a whole world full of people that truly have a gift of desperation and could use some groceries, could use some bus tokens, could use a bed to sleep in, could use interaction on a daily basis with an individual that has a working knowledge of the 12 steps, and literally have almost died to get there. That's just from my own personal experience. And I'm pretty sure that you hear me talking, but I'm not sure what it means to you. Most of us have people in our lives that we interact with, excuse me. Most of us have people in our lives that we interact with over and over and over from a good place, expecting different results. And we have no reason to even believe that. They have never shown us anything different. It's just that, for some reason, we decide to line up for some more pain. If that's you out there, there's very little I can say because I have been there. Now, what I'm talking about is not intimate relationships, um, and those sometimes can even be worse. What I'm talking about, my lessons, the 2 lessons that I learned this year, that you can do the same thing over and over, expecting different results from a good place, trying to love unconditionally. And you can most certainly apply that to intimate relationships too. You can apply it to any field. You can apply it to your education, your job. Sometimes we keep showing up to the same toxic people at work, thinking that all of a sudden today we won't be gossiping at lunch about the supervisor. And it doesn't change because change is not for them. It's not in them. They're too comfortable until someone cold check them and fire them. And maybe that won't even be enough, right? My name is Mighty Stream. I've enjoyed talking to you. I just dropped that like that was hot, right? I just dropped that. But you know what? I know that there's something to gain from it. And I hope that you will. Have a beautiful day on purpose.